careful crossing the road. Remember, people be crazy. Here's a little bit of greenbrier. All right, guys, so before we begin our survival hike in the Pine Barrens, we first have to define what the Pine Barrens is. I'll give you guys a chance to chime in. Does anybody have a description of it? In a few words, whatever you think fits, try to describe what the Pine Barrens is. Alrighty, personally, I think it's a desert with trees that's always on fire. That's essentially that. It is technically classified as a desert. You'll notice when we get further out, like right here, you don't really see it. When we get further out, if you move the needles out of the way, you'll notice, whoa, that's sand. All the soil out here is well-drained, acidic soil. It's the most well-drained soil in the world in the Pine Barrens. Anybody know what this guy right here is? Pine. Yes, this is a white pine tree. Now, technically, these guys are not native to the Pine Barrens. This is an area that was reforested in the 1930s by the Civilian Conservation Corps, also known as the CCC. These trees out here are probably around almost 100 years old now. You can see they're getting pretty wide. Like, I couldn't even get my arms all the way around this one. The oldest tree in South Jersey that we had was a white oak. It was like 475. That fell down like 9 or 10 years ago. It was in Smithville Park, if you guys were wondering. There was a big stump. You can see it. It's gone now. But white pine generally isn't native to this area of New Jersey and the Pine Barrens. What is pitch pine. We're going to see an example of pitch pine a little bit further down the trail up there, and you'll also notice that there's something very important to look at it for. There's a property it has that property that pitch pine has that white pine did not.
What is it?
Alright, we're a little bit further down the trail now. First thing we'll notice. You guys think this is white pine? No. This is not white pine. This is pitch pine right here. Now, this down here, where do you think this charred black bark came from? What happened to this tree that caused this to happen? Yes.
Like a fire?
Yes, a fire. Very good. What's your name?
Sela.
Sela? 10 points. 10 points to Sela. Very good. Remember, guys, I give out points a lot of the time. Now, I will preface something. I'm very bad at remembering people's names. So if I happen to remember somebody's names, I'm going to give myself a ton of points for that. These trees are extremely fire resistant. White pine trees are not. You'll notice there's a few out there with the smooth bark. Notice how they're totally dead. That's because they're not natural to this area. Anything that can't sustain a little bit of fire damage, not native to the New Jersey Pine Barrens. You'll see the oaks right there. The base of that one right there is burnt. However, he is still alive and kicking. Now, pitch pines are able to be burned, I think, about 90% through, and they will be perfectly healthy and operational. They have pine cones that are both opened and serotinous. Let's see if I can find a serotinous pine cone for everybody. Okay, I actually found one. Now, this one has been bored into by bugs, but you guys take a look at this guy. You'll notice that it is fully closed, whereas this guy right here is open. You can pass those around, everybody.
What does serotinous mean?
Serotinous means that that cone will burst open when it reaches temperatures of 180 degrees or more. These trees specifically do this because when fires burn through an area of the Pine Barrens, they get rid of a lot of the competition, like the oaks and the white pine. Do you guys, anybody live in like a clay soil environment with like normal? Yeah, clay soil environment, guys?
Oh, yeah.
You'll notice no pitch pines. That's because pitch pines are not competitive trees. They're specifically adapted to the Pine Barrens and the terrible soil, which has no nutrients, and the fact that they're the only ones that can survive the fire, which is why they're so dominant here, and you don't really see them anywhere else in the world. Or anywhere else in, you know, clay soil, New Jersey. There's one other thing you'll notice about this area before we move on. Is that this side is all burnt and fried, and obviously fire has occurred in that area. How about this side right here, guys? Do you think fire has started in there?
No.
No, correct. What was your name? Liam? 10 points, Liam. Remember, guys, if I ask something, answer. You know, give me an answer. Engage. Doesn't matter if you're wrong. I'll probably still give you 5 for trying. So this area right here did not burn. Now, Forest Fire Service, their headquarters is right over there. They do something called prescribed burning. That means they'll look in an area with a lot of brush and a lot of trees that they think is high risk, and they will set that area on fire and then contain it to decrease the risk of that area turning into a wildfire. They do this so that if it does turn into a wildfire, there isn't a bunch of fuel waiting there to fuel into this over here. This area over here is protected. They're not allowed to burn that, so they have to burn around it to prevent a fire starting over there from spreading into there. Or a fire unexpectedly starting in there. They don't want it to go soaring over here. We actually saw a very big forest fire this year. You guys know about that one earlier by Wells Mills. It jumped the parkway twice. It has not done that since 1995. Pretty crazy news. We had another one down in Wharton recently, a really big one. It was all over, all the smoke was over 206. I think that was the 14th of June. That one was really raging. But we have had a few big fires recently. There was the 4th of July fire just last year. That was big. One thing to note, if you guys know a firefighter or a forest firefighter, please note, never say control burn around them because they get really offended. Because they say you can't control fire. So they change the terminology to prescribe burn. Alrighty. So that right there is a form of black locust. So black locust typically doesn't grow out here, but it does seem to kind of starting to get a foothold. I usually remove that. It's not technically invasive.
this trail right here, there's a lot of activity. So people track in on soil, on their boots and shoes and stuff. That soil will kind of establish, as well as this rock bed, which has a little bit of clay soil in it. And it'll make a little mini environment where those plants typical of, you know, more urban New Jersey can actually grow. There's a fire break down over there, guys, if you guys are interested in fire ecology and all that stuff. There's tons of those out in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. If you ever find yourself lost, follow one of those. It'll eventually put you out to a road.
Quick question back about the fires, the tribe
Yes.
fires. How do they like contain, aside from the distance from one area to the other, how do they like contain it? Like, are they just like ready with water, or?
So all of the forest fire trucks are equipped with a certain amount of water. So forest fires, are you talking about how they contain it? Just wildfires in general, or
No, like the
specifically?
prescribed fires. Like to be
Prescribed
sure that
fires.
it doesn't become a wildfire, what are their precautions to like, like when they watch it, what are they
Yeah.
looking for, and how do they stop it if they see that it's getting a little bit too much in a certain area?
So they're looking to control what's called a head fire, which is the front of the fire. That's dictated by the wind, and that's usually the hottest portion of the fire. It moves the fastest. Sometimes they can move really fast. So the trucks are designed to have that water in them. They don't have much. I think it's like 50 gallons. I think a lot more than that, actually. It's not very much, though. Those trucks put out what are called spot fires, which are fires that start from wind blowing an ember into a new area. So the spot fires is how those prescribed burns will usually try to get out. They'll just go in here with torches and they'll light it all on fire. Now, for general fire survival, because this is the Surviving the Pine Barrens hike after all, we already talked about the ecology, what defines the Pine Barrens, how forest fires work in the Pine Barrens, how they're contained as well. Like, question. That's a really good question. 10 points. What was your name?
Alvin.
Allison. 10 points, Allison. Everybody's getting wealthy with the points, guys. You guys start talking to me. I'm giving them out. They're like candy. Don't take candies from strangers, guys. It's not good. Don't do that. All right. Fire survival. First of all, once again, we have to use tree ID to determine what area of the Pine Barrens we're in. I will show you some of that later. We're going to be looking for red maples as well as Atlantic white cedars. Both of those trees grow in wetter areas. The forest fires do not go into those wet areas. They can't burn, especially the cedar. If you ever see an area with a big forest fire problem, just like Wells Mills, if you guys drive through there on Wells Mills Road, you'll notice all of that area crowned out. Crowning out means that the fire went all the way to the top of the pitch pines and they died from that because they can't sustain if they go all the way up. But you'll notice those crowned areas. Next to them are cedar swamps that are completely fine. The fire couldn't get into there. It was too wet and too damp. The fire couldn't start properly. So if there is a forest fire and you're trying to get to a safe area, the first area you want to find is a wet area, a swamp of some sorts, ideally a cedar swamp. You don't want to go into it because there's other issues with animals that live in cedar swamps that could be potentially dangerous, life-threatening, could cause what we'll just say a severe shortness of breath. I think the adults can figure out what that means. Death. So be careful of certain things out there. We'll go over those soon. The other thing you can do if you are trying to avoid getting caught in a forest fire is look for areas that have already burnt ground. Remember, you cannot burn the same spot of the forest twice. If an area is burnt, it's not going to burn again. Now, it could be hot, so make sure you're not running out in like Crocs or something, or bare feet or anything like that. But that is the second area you can go to if a forest fire is started, or roads or general fire breaks should be fine. Alrighty, we're going to start heading down this trail over here. If you guys look on the sides of the trails, you'll notice there's a ton of funnel webs out here. Now that's where some of the smaller spider species out here live. Those are not orb weavers. Orb weavers make webs that are higher up and more intricate. However, the funnel webs house a few of our venomous spider species, so please don't agitate any of the spiders in those webs. However, if you'd like to look into the funnel section, there's a chance you might see a spider in there. I'll try to point one out soon. If you guys come out here on like a foggy day with high precipitation, you'll notice that those webs are kind of illuminated on the ground.
Probably haven't done it one lot. No, it's still. It's close to it. Alrighty, you got it, everybody. So this right here, these are deer ticks. We
have these as well. The reason we don't give a big warning about them at the start is that deer ticks will give you Lyme's disease, and that is extremely treatable. If that does happen, you're going to get this big rash. What does it look like, guys?
Bullseye.
Bullseye, correct. A lot of people said that. Everybody's getting points today. You get a big bullseye, like a big red one. You'll notice that you'll start to feel the symptoms, just general nausea, discomfort, fever, all that stuff. It's different for everybody. Some people get a sore throat, some people get a stomach ache. Depends how your immune system handles stuff, really. But you will notice it, a few rounds of antibiotics and a trip to the doctor, and you are fine. That is something to keep in mind, though. These are what they look like. They're generally a lot smaller than the Lone Star ticks. I know, that's right, buddy. You. That's what we say when we see deer ticks, right? Ew. All right. We're also going to go over some of the other insects. What's this guy? Mosquito, correct. Mosquitoes suck. However, we do not want to eradicate them. You guys know why?
Males are pollinators.
Yes! Thank you.
Only females are bloodsuckers.
Thank you very much.
I'll let you take that any way you want.
Males are pollinators. You might say, oh my god. But why can't, we have got other pollinators. However, they're the only pollinator in some of the northern regions of the world. Think Alaska, northern Canada. A lot of the wildflowers up there, the beautiful areas, all the trees, all the plants. The only reason they can survive is the mosquitoes. Because they are technically pollinators. To flip back to them though, ticks, the only thing they do is they give guinea hens an extra food source. So we can probably be safe if we get rid of ticks. They're what's called a parasitic animal, otherwise known as parasites. Parasites mean that a parasitic animal or a parasitic relationship means that one mooches off the other with no benefit to the one being mooched. Whereas a symbiotic relationship, think ravens and wolves, think trees and lichens sometimes, or trees and lichens are considered Paleolithic. No, it's a time period. Trees and lichens are not considered parasitic because specific lichens will only grow off of dead trees. And since they're not alive anymore, they don't actually consider that a parasitic relationship. There's a different word for it, which I'm trying to remember for you guys. I'm sorry. I might remember it later, and I'll remind you there. Mosquitoes are still, there's still worries about that. So that's
Commensalism? Commensalism?
That might be it. Thank you. What was that?
Commensalism.
Commensalism.
Where one benefits and the other is not harmed or benefited?
Yes. That should be it. Thank you about that. This guy's full. What's your name?
Brian.
Brian the naturalist, guys.
He's a science teacher.
He's an environmental
Okay. I was like, this guy knows stuff. Occasionally people say stuff, and I'm like, okay, that guy went to college, didn't he?
It's not fair. Listen,
That guy's
give him
got a
one
degree.
point.
He needs to give us 10 of those to get the 10 points.
Alrighty. So mosquitoes technically can give you West Nile virus, which is another thing to be worried about. I think we only have like 6 cases a year in the U.S. It really isn't too common, but we're doing the survival hike, so I'm making sure to give you guys every single possible survival situation.
But those are only certain mosquitoes, right?
Yes, these ones can still give it to you. It's just really rare. Like the mosquitoes that are further south in some of those
Central American countries.
African countries, Southeast Asian countries. You'll notice mosquitoes are the deadliest animal in the world because of the disease they transmit. Not in this area. I don't think we've had anybody get killed by a mosquito in New Jersey for like 200 years. But they are still technically considered the deadliest animal in the world. If you guys want to, brag about that, that's your fact.
This is not loud. Is it volume in your ears? Maybe like one year.
Yeah. Still would be that much. I don't see many on this trail. These dogs and chickens are usually good for snakes, I think. Okay. This weather though is pretty much perfect for a snake walk though. Because they do go for cooler temperatures in conjunction with a lot of sun exposure. Alright guys, this is quite the incline we have right here.
And we've made it. That is the highest peak in South Jersey right there. That slight little one. It also is, so the highest peak is, I believe, Arnie's Mountain. It's 135 feet. You could get on a step stool and see half the state.
Oh, it's just in. So that right there is going to be a Syrah pine tree. That's not a pine tree. If it's close up, Syrah, that one right there is an open one. So look out, like there's a deadly animal up here. We ought to be careful.
Is that my name?
No, he said Liam.